This is Andy Purewal for Boxing Social in association with Betfred, and I'm delighted to be joined by Matthew Macklin over Zoom. Matt, first and foremost, how are you keeping?
I'm good, Andy, and yourself?
Yeah, I'm good myself. Obviously, it's good to catch up. It's been a few weeks now since obviously fight camp came to an end. How have you found kind of a chance to look back on that month?
I thought it was a brilliant month. I thought we got some great fights. Really did. I think it exceeded expectations. It was great to get back watching some, live boxing. And like I said, I think it lived up to everyone's hopes and exceeded all expectations. We had some really, really great fights. The Taylor Pursuit fight was another battle. Natasha Jones, Terry Harper was a great fight. We had a few draws, didn't we? We had a couple of very, very close fights that could have gone either way. Just a brilliant, brilliant series, and well done to everyone. At Matchroom and who put it together. It was great.
Have you kind of had any time to look back and watch any of the fights, which I know you was commentating on them, but did you have a chance to watch them back?
So I watched the Whyte, the pay-per-view card on the Wednesday night. It was shown on Sky on Wednesday evening. So I watched it back then.
What did you make of it? Anything different that you could see in there then from what you could see on fight night?
Yeah, on the night of the fight, I had the Katie Taylor fight 5 rounds apiece. I had it a draw. But watching it back, I thought she definitely won it. I thought she definitely won 6 of the rounds. I think Pursuit was a lot of aggression, and she threw a lot. And she was landing. It wasn't ineffective aggression, but she missed a lot. Katie Taylor was slipping and sliding, but only just. So from 20 metres back, she was very aggressive, and she would snap the head back occasionally, but she missed with a lot as well. I think Katie Taylor's upper body movement was very good on the inside, where she was, not slipping the shots by a mile, but just slipping and sliding them, and she was definitely landing the better shots. And when I was actually scored it back on the Wednesday evening, I had Taylor winning 6 rounds to 4, so that was different. But other than that, I think pretty much, how we called it on the night.
Obviously, moving forwards now and on to the next kind of lot of boxing shows just started to be announced from today by Matchroom. Start from the top and we'll work through Matt. Buatsi Kalic, obviously excited to see Joshua Buatsi back in the ring, what must feel like forever, to be fair. What should we expect to see from Joshua? It's obviously been a very long time since he last fought.
Just to get him back winning, to get busy again. We hope he puts on a vintage performance. That said, even if he does, you've got to keep it into perspective. The guy he's fighting isn't a top-ranked guy. So it should be a comfortable win for Buatsi. But I suppose we want to see him winning style. And then just put this period of inactivity behind him and stay busy now, get active. And because I think that the likes of Joshua Buatsi, I think he's not that far away from fighting for a world title. That said, before he goes in against a Beterbiev or a Bivol, or I'd like to see him, maybe against a Sullivan Barrera, that type of guy. He's got the level he's been fighting at. Even a Callum Johnson. Callum Johnson's fought Beterbiev. I'd like to see Buatsi and Callum Johnson, because that's a real fight. These guys that Buatsi's been beating, they're opponents. They know they're probably going to get beaten coming in. What ambition have they got left? What experience? How proven? All these things. So he's looked $1 million, and we know he's got the amateur pedigree. But these guys he's been beating have been at a certain level. So in order for him to go into a 50-50 world title fight where it's going to be nip and tuck against the likes of a Bivol and a Beterbiev, he'll be the underdog probably. Like to see him have an in-between level fight. So I'd like to have him a real tough test, which is closer to that level. Like I say, a Sullivan Barrera, really good name a few years back. Probably not quite what he was. But listen, Callum Johnson, that's a great fight. Callum Johnson, we know he had Beterbiev over. He's a good fighter, Callum Johnson. And listen, him and Buatsi, that's certainly not a foregone conclusion. I think people would probably make Buatsi the favourite, just because, he's probably the Olympic star and he's looked so good coming through. But he's, Callum Johnson's certainly the more seasoned of the two. He's more experienced, and he's certainly no slouch himself. So that could be a great fight. In fact, if I think what's the problem is with Buatsi? I think the problem is for Eddie and that is it's probably difficult to match him now, because I think guys top kind of guys probably don't really want to fight him. And you know, so I'd say they're already having to kind of quite dramatically overpay certain level of opponent to get in there with him. But if you're a top contender guy, do you really want to risk your ranking against someone that's coming up from beneath you? You want to fight one of the guys ahead of you. So that's the problem he's in at the minute. But he doesn't. I wouldn't like to see him go straight in now with a Bivol or a Purewal. I'd like to, like I say, a Sullivan Barrera, a Callum Johnson. You know, a fight that's a proper fight. You know, Callum Johnson especially, because you know Barrera's probably not the fighter he was, but I think Callum Johnson's in the peak of his career. So I think him and Buatsi would be a great fight, or even, you know, throw Yard into the mix. That's a more difficult fight to make, obviously. You know, he's with Frank Warren, so, you know, a few more complications in order to get that over the line. But certainly the Callum Johnson fight, I think, could be done, and the title could be on the line too.
Just before we come on to, well, just before we expand on possible Buatsi Johnson, Buatsi Yard, just stick with kind of the opponent he's getting in the ring with. I know that it's difficult times and it might be difficult to get certain opponents over on the back of this past 6 or 7 month period with the pandemic and lockdown and what have you. But is it frustrating? Is it kind of annoying that we won't see Josh in with a tougher opponent than what we will be seeing on that fight night?
It is frustrating, but like I say, I mean, apart from all the things you just mentioned with COVID and all the travel restrictions, etc., you know, you're also, Boatsi's in that position where, you know, he's really a shooting star. He's climbing the ranks fast. And if you're a top kind of level, a top 10 guy that's waiting for your shot, you don't want to fight someone that's, you know, coming up. He's not a prospect, but he's a prospect, say, on the world scene. You don't want to fight that guy. You know, you'd rather fight a more proven guy who's older, maybe on the slide a little bit, like I say, a Sullivan Barrera. You know, Sullivan Barrera boxed on for a world title, boxed on HBO many times. He's a name in the division. You'd rather fight, if you're a top kind of 10 guy, you'd fight someone like him rather than someone like Buatsi, who's young, fresh, hungry. You don't want to fight that kind of guy. So he's, I'd say it's very difficult to match Buatsi right now. I'd say that the fights that he needs are probably, you know, difficult fights to match. But, you know, if, you know, I'm not sure what the situation is with the European title. I think it was it going to become vacant there at one time? But, you know, maybe that, if that was on the line, him and Callum Johnson, that'd be a great fight.
It's something I want to touch on a bit more. Obviously, Callum Johnson and Joshua Buatsi, certainly 2 people I've heard mentioned before for a possible fight. Whenever I go to see Joe Gallagher and the team, they always kind of talk about that. They're always up for it, but for whatever reason, we don't quite seem to have enough noise about it to maybe get the talks going on that one. If them 2 were to meet, how do you think that fight would actually play out, Matt? Because it is a very interesting matchup.
Oh, big time. Like I say, listen, Callum Johnson, as a professional, has been involved, has gone through scenarios in a fight that Buatsi hasn't. Not because, but Buatsi's just, you know, because he's so good and because of the level of their position, have been modest. So he's, you know, he's more seasoned, he's more experienced, he's been down, he's, you know what I mean? That's a great fight. But look, I think Buatsi would probably be the favourite. But I think the reason why it probably hasn't caught more fire in terms of publicity and people talking, they're both nice fellas, you know what I mean? They don't, you know, trash talking isn't their thing. We had them on Sky Sports News. We did the boxing show one week during lockdown. You know, we were trying to spice it up a little bit, but they're respectful of each other. They're not that type of guy. They're not that. That's not their character. That's not their personality. So, you know, they're never going to trash talk each other. And, you know, unfortunately, you know, Joe Public likes the trash talking, don't they? You know, it does get more column inches. It does get more hits on YouTube or IFL or whatever else. You know, Boxing Social. If there's trash talk, it gets more coverage. But they're not that. Neither of those guys are that type of person. But both top quality fighters. Personally, I like both guys, so I wouldn't like to see it. But as a boxing fan, I'd love to see it. And I don't know how it goes. I think Buatsi would start as the favourite, but you definitely don't want to be overlooking Callum Johnson.
Another name you mentioned earlier on in Anthony Yard. It's a fight which many people have talked about for ages. Would love to obviously see Joshua Buatsi versus Anthony Yard. Both men have talked about it themselves. if or when that time comes, when we do see it, is it a fight which needs a world title on the line, in your opinion, Matt?
I mean, ideally, but you know, if that can't happen for whatever reason, you know, certainly British Commonwealth European title fights are on the line. That'd be just, you know, not quite as good, not quite the icing on the cake with the world title, but I'd rather see the fight for the European title, British Commonwealth European titles, than not see the fight. Do you know what I mean? I would like to see it with the world title, of course, but you know, you don't want the fight to not happen, or to maybe they go their separate ways and it happens in a few years' time and it's kind of past its sell-by date. You know, these guys are kind of physically in their primes. Yeah, Buatsi's probably got a bit more experience this season, so I think Yard now is going to be a better fighter for that fight that he had with Kovalev. I think the probably thing that let him down on the night was that he hadn't had a fight closer to that level. And I suppose if you're looking after Buatsi, I'd be looking at that and think, look, you know, Yard did great on the night. He had a really good go at it, but probably what let him down a little bit was, you know, a fight nearer to that level. He'd gone from boxing at such a lower level in comparison, and you know, he was just a bit short on experience. But you know, that's why I think, you know, Team Buatsi will be looking at that, and I think they'll certainly want, you know, look. First of all, he's just got to get back winning, and he just got to get that inactivity, COVID, everything out of the way. But then I think the fight after this, you know, all going well, Eddie's really got to kind of nail down, you know, a big name and, you know, a tough guy, a fight that's really gonna, you know, learn, teach Joshua Buatsi some lessons. You know, he might lose rounds, he might get hurt, whatever you need to go through situations in a fight.
Just to kind of move through that Buatsi Khalid card match, the Fiaz Baker, obviously, was a fight which meant to take place during the fight camp series, and we never saw it. Now that it's going to happen, I know Kane personally, and I've seen Kane, I've spoken to him, and he was always up for that fight. And on the back of the fight being cancelled, he certainly seems to have even more of kind of a fire in his belly now. What do you make of that fight?
I think it's very unfortunate what happened. I'm glad that it's happening now. Listen, I think it's a good fight. Kane Baker, you know, he's won some, lost some kind of guy. But I think he's been matched quite tough. You know, he's gone into the opponent, took short notice, given weight away. So he's certainly better than his record suggests. So you know, Piers will have to, you know, really be up for it, and you know, it'll tell us a bit more about him.
Going to see the return of a savage Alan Babic on that card as well. Matt, are you looking forward to seeing him back in the ring?
Yeah, well, he's exciting, isn't he? He looks to seek and destroy. He looks to get his guys out of there. He's not trying to bag too many rounds in the bag. He's trying to knock guys out. So I think he's fighting Niall Kennedy as well, isn't he? So yeah, I know Niall Kennedy. So you know, that's you know, it's a tough fight for Niall. But listen, he's a proud man and a tough man, and he'll give it everything he's got. That's for sure.
Obviously, there's a lot of talk around Alan possibly facing the likes of Tom Little, Nick Webb, and Dave Allen on the back of his victory at fight camp against Shaundale Winters. What do you make if either of those fights were made? Start off with, you know, Babbage versus Little. Certainly seems to be one which both men have been up for when I've spoken to them.
Well, I don't think I know many fighters that talk the talk better than Little. You know, and he's a tough man. He's not, you know, it wasn't quite up to it against sorry, in Saudi.
Madrimov.
Yes, but you know, he's certainly he'll give it all he's got. He's a tough guy. So look, Babbage is. I don't know how good Babbage is, but he's definitely going to be fun to watch.
What would you make of Babbage versus Dave Allen?
Good fight, you know, good fight. But Dave Allen gets hit. You know, Babbage going to come and stick it on him. That's, you know, there's not going to. I can't see that one going the distance. Put it that way.
Another fight another show which has been announced, obviously headlined by Lewis Ritson versus Vasquez. Previously spoken about, previously kind of agreed. What do you make of that one now? And obviously the unfortunate situation where we might not have fans in a gutting scenario, because we know how good the Toon support is.
Yeah, disappointing. But look, we just want to see any crowd back anywhere, don't we? And just get things moving again. But what can you do? you can only control the controllables. But good to see Ritson getting back. Miguel Vasquez, was a top fighter a few years back. So that's a good name for him. But yeah, shame that we're not up in Newcastle, or maybe we'll be in Newcastle, but off-site behind closed doors. So disappointing. But hey ho, what can you do? You just got to plow on.
What do you make of Ritson Vasquez now, Matt?
I think Vasquez isn't the fighter he was a few years back, but I think he's a good name. He's experienced, and I think he'll pose some problems to Ritson. But I think Ritson should be too young and too fresh, and should be too much for him now.
And then obviously Marshall versus Rankin on that undercard. Women's world title fight. Savannah Marshall being eager for that first crack at a world title. What should we expect to see from Savannah in her first world title bout?
Well, she's a nice boxer. She's a good amateur, experienced. I tell you what, the women's boxing, in the fight camp series, did not step up to the plate. It really did. It delivered each one. I mean, Rachel Ball, Shannon Courtney was a ding dong. Katie Taylor Pursuit was a ding dong. Natasha Jonas and Terry Harper was a great fight. Another ding dong. So, it's on fire right now. It really is. So, who knows? Savannah Marshall can kind of follow in the footsteps and be involved in another great fight. Happy days.
Do you think there's going to be a pressure on the women boxers now to kind of want to deliver similar types of fights and performances that we saw through fight camp?
I don't know. Is it pressure? I don't know if it's pressure. It's competition, isn't it? I don't think it's pressure. I think it's a healthy competition. Everyone wants, when someone else performs well or there's a great fight, you want to be involved in great fights. You want to perform really well. You want yourself up there being talked about in the limelight. So, that's healthy. That's a good competitiveness. And I think that the bar is being raised. The standard has been high. Fight camp really has set the bar high. So, I think now Eddie's just got to keep delivering, putting on these great shows, great matches. I think because of COVID, and because of the limitation on fights, it's like if you want to like be in safe fights, then you can sit on the shelf and just wait. You're not going to be in fights, but because there's a demand now for TV friendly fights, 50-50. It might work out 50-50, but these have got to be 50-50, 60-40 competitive matches. Certainly on paper going in. However they turn out. But like I say, on fight camp, we really did get some great fights.
And then obviously leading into the big one, that heavyweight rematch between Dillian Whyte and Alexander Povetkin. One thing which certainly people have been speaking about today, Matt, is kind of the suspension period because of the knockdowns between so Dillian Whyte obviously having a lesser suspension period given to him by the board compared to what Dex Spellman did for his recent defeat to Anthony Yarde over the weekend. I don't know whether you've seen it all, but what's kind of your thoughts on them being able to get the fight on so soon in November?
Well, I haven't seen what's been said. I did watch Yarde against Spellman. Look, I think, I think Povetkin, it was more of the one clean, hard punch that KO'd him, rather. He didn't take a sustained beating, where Spellman was getting broken down steadily, methodically. I thought, he was, you could see that Yarde was starting to step it up. He had a good spirited effort, good go at it, Spellman. But Yarde always looked like, he was jabbing the body, he was driving the shots in the body, he was chopping him down, he was breaking him down slowly, and so he was taking more punishment. I think where, Povetkin landed some good shots, predominantly to the body, and then that one left uppercut, which was an absolute peach. It was a one-punch knockout. So I suppose I don't know, I haven't heard what's been said, but I'm guessing the argument is, well, look, it was one punch, it wasn't a sustained beating. So, look, I suppose you can argue either way.
I believe in the end it ended up being 28-day suspension for Dillian and a 45-day suspension for Deck. Your thoughts on kind of that now that I'm telling you that, Matt?
Well, I'm not a doctor, so I don't know the wins and out. Why one's 28 and one's 45. I don't know that, but look, Spellman wasn't KO'd. He wasn't concussed, was he? Where Dillian was concussed, he was knocked out cold. So, you'd have to say on the surface, it's strange that Spellman got 45 days and Dillian got 28. That is strange. Like I say, I don't know the medical why that is. But I didn't even know this. You just said it. That I don't know the situation on it. So I'm just giving you my gut reaction here, initial reaction. But yeah, you'd have to say that that's strange. Why would Dillian Whyte get 28 days and Spellman get 45? Doesn't make sense to me.
Just on the fight itself, Matt, how much pressure is there on Dillian to be successful now? And is there any surprise, or are you surprised that all that Dillian's decided to go straight back in there?
No, not really, because he was boxing so well. Some people will say Povetkin was setting that shot up, which I suppose he was, in the sense that he was throwing plenty of left hooks to the body. And then when he dipped to his left, Dillian thought the left hook to the body was coming, and he didn't throw it to the body, he threw it up the middle. So, yeah, he was setting it up. But nonetheless, Dillian was controlling that fight. He was winning the fight, and he was controlling it. He was staying very tight defensively. He was picking his shots well, the straight right hands down the middle, his jabs, really snapping the head back at Povetkin. And he had him down twice at the end of the fourth, the round previous to the stoppage. So, in terms of, if you're going to liken it to a game of football, the knockout came against the run of play. Dillian was in the driving seat. That said, great shot by Povetkin. So, I think if I was Dillian, I'd be kicking myself to think, I got caught with that shot. I was boxing well. Whatever, maybe he had to be a bit more patient, a bit more vigilant. Maybe he switched off a little bit. Like I say, Povetkin was certainly, that was a shot he was obviously setting up because he was throwing lots of body shots. I don't know. Look, it's if he loses, that is there's no point dressing it up. If he loses again, it's tough, isn't it? It's tough for him. Considering how long he's waited, how long he was should have got his world title shot. If he was to lose again, it's not the end of the road for him. It's not like he's got to retire or anything, but it would be a sickener for him. He would. I think he'd be sick as a dog, and because he does. Then if he loses to Povetkin again in the rematch, he is kind of at the back of the queue then.
Just on that rematch between Dillian Whyte and Povetkin, do you think we will see, or we need to see, that kind of aggressive side to Dillian come out a bit more, that more kind of animal instinct that we've seen, in the past when he had him down in the fourth round twice, we'd have seen him jump on him and look to finish him. He was a lot more controlled this time round. Do you think we need to see that in him in a rematch?
No, I don't think so. I thought he was boxing well. I think, you can't just rush in and steam into someone like Alexander Povetkin. He carries serious power, as he proved again. He hurt age. This guy's a top fighter, Olympic champion. He's 40 years old, but he's still going, isn't he? I mean, he got put down in one round, in his first round against Michael Hunter, and came back and fought his way to a draw. He's still a good fighter. And he can bang hard. So, Dillian would be. I thought Dillian approached the fight in the right way. He was vigilant. He was switched on, focused. Very tight defensively, didn't give anything away, picked his shots. He took his time, and it was paying dividends. He was doing really well. And like I say, he had scored the 2 knockdowns in round 4. He was doing the right thing. I think he just got caught with a great shot. It's a shot that Povetkin was certainly setting up. He was throwing body shots. So, you just can't switch off for a minute with someone like Povetkin because he only takes one punch.
Final thing, Matt, just away from all the fights, to get your thoughts on, it's obviously come out, I think it's just over a week or so ago, Canelo's taking legal action against Dazn, Oscar De La Hoya, Golden Boy, and what have you, for a breach of contract. What do you make of that entire situation?
Messy situation, kind of slagging each other off all over social media, airing their dirty laundry publicly, just a messy situation. I think without knowing all the information about the contracts, etc., it looks like Dazn thought they were going to get the Golovkin trilogy. Was that promised to them by Golden Boy? We don't know. They're going to say it was. Canelo's going to say, well, why did you promise it? I didn't say that. It's just a messy situation, isn't it? So, they'll, hopefully it gets wrapped up and gets, an amicable, workable solution, because, Canelo's biggest star in boxing, and you don't want to see the biggest star in your sport sitting there idle. You want to see involved in big fights.
On kind of the fighters' fronts and who Canelo was rumoured to have kind of had to face in terms of a level for Dazn and for everybody to be happy, was you surprised to hear that people thought that we would see the likes of, Canelo versus some UFC fighters or Oscar De La Hoya even, those were the names that were being mentioned that, Dazn would class as kind of the elite fights to kind of have the right side to his agreement.
Look, you got boxing, it's a sport and it's a business, and, sometimes not necessarily the best fight is the one that is the best business. So, it's the big name like that most people know that'll tune in and watch the fight. So the TV company won that fight, the big fight. We just want the great fights. The fans, we want the best. We want to see Billy Joe, Canelo. We want to see Callum Smith and Canelo. Does Callum Smith and Billy Joe move the needle, as they say in America, on subscriptions? I don't know. I would have said, look, they're surely going to be promoted and sold that way because they're both undefeated champions within super middleweight champions. So you'd like to think that it could do, but he's on about fighting some UFC guy. Look, it's about money, isn't it? That's not gonna enhance Canelo's boxing legacy. It might earn him a lot of money, and it might get a lot of subscriptions for DAZN, but that's not gonna strengthen his legacy within boxing fans. But if he beats Callum Smith and beats Billy Joe, that will.
Matt, we'll leave that there, and I will leave you to enjoy the rest of your evening. It's been a pleasure to catch up with you, and I'm sure I will speak to you soon. Thank you for your time, and thanks for speaking to Boxing Social.
Cheers, Andy. Nice one.